Hello, Amy, and welcome to the Thrive in Life and Business podcast. How are you?
I'm really good, thank you. Thank you for having me on.
My absolute pleasure. So, I'm really excited for our conversation today. Before we dive in, would you be so kind as to give our listeners and viewers a little insight into you, who you are, and what you do?
So I am a dressage and mindset coach. I predominantly work with competitive amateurs, but I do work with anyone really. And I work predominantly to help riders. I think really I narrow it down to performance mindset and performance strategy. So tying the off horse stuff onto with the on horse stuff to promote their performance essentially.
Yeah, amazing. I love that. So, how did you come about doing this? Give us a little bit of like the backstory. Is this something you always wanted to do? Is it something you've always done? What's that look like for you?
I always wanted to coach. That was always part of, I don't even know where that came from. I even remember in school, I knew that I wanted to coach. That was what I wanted to do, even when everyone else was like, how do you even know what you want to do? And I think probably as part of my journey, the mindset was always just part of it. I was born and bred in a horsey family, and we had a thoroughbred stallion which we crossed with all types of horses. So I ended up riding and competing lots of different types of horses. And as time went on, I ended up going down the dressage route purely because that's kind of how work took me. I set up at home, and then someone was like, "Hey, you need to go work for somebody." So I went and worked on predominantly a dressage yard. Um, but I took with me my Anglo Arab, who was really not a dressage horse. Um, he had been my penny club pony, but he wasn't. I kind of bred him with the idea that he might event or do something. Endurance was really what he was meant to do. Didn't like getting his feet wet, so I tried eventing him. He didn't like doing that either, funnily enough, because that involves also getting your feet wet. And he really didn't like he jumped really well one day and then he would not the next. So when I moved, he came with me because he is actually really good on the flat. And but with that came, although I learned so much on him, and God, I know everything that I know now is probably down to him. I had to have such a strong mindset around him because he was not your conventional dressage horse. He was absolutely. I'm 5'9", he was 15'1". Um, we didn't fit your normal picture in the dressage world, and that was something I had to really be strict on myself around my mindset and being able to get the best out of us both in every situation was something I had to really, that performance strategy had to come into play. And I learned it along the way, but I also kind of learned it through experience as well.
Yeah. What were some of those kind of early days around recognizing the mindset like for you? Did you kind of have this heightened awareness that you were like, this is mindset? Or when you reflect back and you look back now, you're just like, oh, that was actually mindset work?
I think at the time I came out through the BD youth system, and there was quite a lot of psychology and mindset support during that. But it was an incredibly competitive environment, like so competitive, and quite like nobody put the pressure on you, but you did put a lot of pressure on yourself. And I think that is probably where I had to get better at managing myself and not comparing myself to others. So I had an awareness about it, but I hadn't realized how much I had to thread it into what I was doing. Uh, Oh, there's Mary. And and that is I think that is something that has become very prominent in what I'm doing, everything that I do every day, basically. And I think these days I now look back and think, God, actually, my self-regulation through my mindset work was probably far better than I knew at the time. And that's why I'm so passionate about it. And particularly with clients now, is for me, it's about making it accessible to everybody, no matter what you're riding or who you are or what your busy lifestyle is, actually dressage is accessible to everyone and anyone. It's just how you approach it and how you go about it that then makes it the most enjoyable experience.
Yeah. Do you know, I'm so passionate about mindset, as and as you are, and I'm obviously very passionate about it from a business perspective. But I remember when I had my horse, I had a lesson on him one day, and I didn't have a school, so I literally would have a dressage lesson in the field, and
Yeah.
it was right next to a lane. And my horse that day was just an absolute knob. Like he was just a dick. He was like he obviously thought he was still in racing that day, and it was just shit. Like the whole lesson was shit. But there were three like seconds in the middle where he like trotted across like the fake dressage arena that I had, and he trotted across and he was on the bit, and his little flicky toes were going, and it was just like those couple of strides in the middle were so good. And I remember seeing my then husband straight after the lesson, and he had driven past in the tractor, and he was like, "God, are you okay? Like that didn't look very good." I'm like, "Cheers, then. Cheers for the vote of confidence there." And I said, "We had three really good trot strides in the middle. Like, it was so good. I felt like I was like in the Grand Prix at the Olympics." And that to me was like power of mindset because
Yeah,
the other 45 minutes was shit, but there were three good little trot strides in the middle, and
yeah,
that I focused on. And then I think the following lesson I had was so good, and he was just like so perfectly behaved. But it would have been so easy to look at that whole lesson and just write it off and just say, it was shit, I'm giving up, nothing's working. But actually, it was consciously focusing on those good little moments in the middle, then propelled for the next lesson. And then I think I then
yeah.
went to the dressage competition a couple of weeks later and was third, which I was really pleased about. But I think it's like creating and curating that kind of positive reflection and positive self-talk that we have, because otherwise we can just be
Yes.
our own harshest critics, can't we?
Yeah, completely. And I think you get that a lot in dressage. And particularly, I still think, because I actually help probably more people, more event riders with their dressage than I do dressage riders in a way. But anybody competing in the whiteboards, per se, are putting themselves out to be judged. So that is something we can't control, which is so tricky because then actually success becomes really your perspective. It's no one else's because you are the only person present for that test every single time. So being able to see the learnings and the opportunities within every performance matters because it was so, like you say, so easy to focus on what you didn't do or what you didn't do well. And we're pre-programmed for that. So actually to be able, it's much harder to be able to pick out, oh, these things went well, but you can train yourself to do that. And I think it really matters because it changes. And I'm a great believer, and I know you are as well, that success is a perspective and you have the power to own that perspective. And I think once riders learn that, or people in general, to be honest, once people in general learn that you have control to select the perspective you want to take, it changes everything. It's a game changer.
Yeah.
And it's by the very nature of what we do, we are competing, we are in competition, so it's very easy to compare yourself against everybody around. And I've just come back fresh off a camp actually, and one of the big things we talked about is how getting placed and your scores and everything is actually reliant on who else turns up. It's not, you could do your best test on the day and your best performance, but someone else who is further down the line, who has been longer, who's more experienced, might turn up and do an even better test than you. That doesn't mean that you've done a bad test. It
Yeah.
just means that they've done a flipping amazing test.
Yeah.
And it's really hard to kind of put that into the right perspective. And that, I think you're right, is being able to flip it and see, take the positives, take the learnings, feed forward to where you want to go, rather than be like, oh, well, that's it, that was rubbish. Actually, what can we do? What can we do to make that better? What can we learn from that? If we were to do it again, what would we do differently?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's all how you look at it.
I love that. And that is such a good way to look at it. The fact that you could do your absolute best, you could be so proud of yourself, but then somebody else comes along and does their best, and it makes your best not feel good enough. And again, there's so many similarities between this and business, because I
Yeah,
think so often people don't own their success, they don't own their results, they don't fucking celebrate themselves because they're like,
yeah,
well, I've just hit this goal, but someone on the internet's just made $1 bajillion in like a month. And it
yeah,
almost is then that comparisonitis piece that makes what you've seen on the internet take away from what you've achieved. And I think one
yeah,
of the things that has been so massive for my own journey in business is actually being so laser focused, so in my own lane on me,
yes,
my clients, my vision, my business. Yes, there's people out there that are making so much more money than me, but I'm like, well, how amazing is it that I've just done this? How
Yes.
amazing is it that I just hit this goal after the like rock bottom and like all of those things? It's like how amazing. And I think we almost lose that all that we have for ourselves and what we've achieved and
Yes.
been through because there's so much externally that's going into our minds. And I think that's such a good way to look at it. It really is.
And it's interesting. I always use this as a story that I went to a competition a few years back, and I remember it distinctly because I had defined the goal that I had for the day. Like I defined what success was for me that day, and I that was what I was focusing on. And I went and I did it, and the test was great. I actually got a PB. I achieved everything that I wrote down on paper, but I was last. I was last in the class. And I always say to people, it was such a moment where I had to have a word with myself because I was like, I have done everything I want to do. I got the qualifying score, I got best score I've ever got. Like it went really well. But I was last in the class. But I knew when I was warming up and I looked around and I was like, wow, this is a hot class. Like there is some really good people here for this level. And this is very competitive. Like it was equivalent to riding in a national class, not a local show. And that was beyond my control. But then you have to look at it, and I often use this as like a rider one, rider two example of kind of like which perspective you would take. Do you take the fact that you have achieved everything you've done today and that's really good, or do you take the fact that you were last? And it depends on your definition of success. And this is what I always say to people. I get a lot of people say to me, "Oh, well, I'm a perfectionist," and the problem is for me, I don't take perfectionism anymore. Like I think perfectionism is very easy. Yes, you can be one, but if you are just stopping there and saying, yeah, well, I'm a perfectionist, that's what it is, you're almost copping out a little bit in taking responsibility. And when you're a perfectionist, all that says to me is that okay, that's fine. That means you haven't learned to clearly define what your success is yet. Because when you don't define it, you keep moving the goalposts because you don't know what it is. So then you never achieve it. So you feel like you're never doing it. And yeah, that's so tricky. But for me, getting a pen and paper and writing down. So when people say, oh, well, I really struggle because I'm a perfectionist, I'm like, okay, that's fine. So when you're going to a show, whatever, tell me for the show, what is success for you on this day?
Yeah.
And a lot of the time they really struggle to do it. And that's a skill I work on a lot with people because if you don't find success, you can never be successful.
Yes. I got goosebumps at this conversation. Like, this is so fucking good. I always say that perfectionism is a limiting belief.
Yeah,
I'm
it
like,
is.
at the root of perfectionism, there's a belief that you're not good enough. There's
Yeah,
a belief that you're not worthy. There's a belief that you're not capable. I'm like, perfectionism is just like this sexy word that people have created to kind of
yeah,
cover up what's beneath it. I'm like, no, 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 let's go to the root. You're not just telling me you're a perfectionist and getting away with not showing up in business
yeah,
or in your dressage tests. It's like, okay, cool, that's cute, but no, not having
yeah.
it.
Yeah, and I think it is, like you say, it's a really good cover up, and it's a nice little way of kind of like just putting to the side that we don't need to talk about that because I'm a perfectionist and it's that's what it is. But it is a limiting belief because actually, like you say, there's a belief there that they're not good enough, and they're actually. I'm not sure whether I want to use the word scared, but I think they are worried about defining what is good enough, and that then stops them from for striving for that, and that is a cycle they will never get out of unless we remove the word perfectionism, remove the word perfect, and start defining what their version of that is.
Yeah. Because really, what is perfect anyway? Like, even as a word, I think that word almost needs banning. You know, we ban the word should in my world. I
Yeah.
think we need to ban the
Yeah.
word perfect.
Personally, I don't like perfect and I don't like failure, and I don't those two words really they don't exist in my world. And I say to people, fine, if you want to use those words you can, that's absolutely fine, but you have to tell me what they are
Yeah.
for what you're doing in that moment. You can own them, you can have them, but you have to tell me what perfect is for this situation and what failure is for this situation. If we're going to use those words, personally, I don't like the word failure because I'm not sure it exists.
No.
Because it's you just learn. You know if you get it wrong or something goes wrong, yeah, I just don't ever think I can ever say, oh, I failed at that. It just doesn't sit with me. I can say, oh, I got that wrong, but actually I've learned this from it. But I don't think I can say I failed at it. And I don't think I would. I don't think I can use perfect because I don't feel like it exists. But I can use success because I can define that. So
Yeah.
I think probably it is bringing it back to that control the controllables, isn't it?
Yeah. I would just ban the word failure if I were you. I'd be like, nope, you're not saying it. I always think failure is just a mental construct. It's
Yeah,
just the story that someone has created about an experience that's happened. But again, that goes back to perception. You can change your perception on that thing. Like,
yeah,
I've had failed launches before. I'm like, well, they're not a failure because they gave me such key data of what I need to
yes,
do to work on that and make the next launch I do fucking incredible. Like,
yeah,
failure is just a mental construct. That's it. It's not
completely.
real.
Yeah, yeah, and it only exists if you accept it. I think that's the thing. And I personally, I'm not willing to accept a failure in my world. And like I say, that's not. I'm not willing to accept that I got it wrong. I'm very willing to accept that I get things wrong, um, but I am not willing to accept that I have failed at something.
Yeah. So, what does your kind of day-to-day mindset work look like? What is it that you kind of do regularly to really keep your mindset in a really good place? And what do you do when you recognize your mindset being a little bit challenged?
Do you know what? These last 6 months have been a really, really good test of that.
Yeah.
So I had a baby in August. She's my first baby, and I have literally spent this whole time being my brain divided. Because up until now, I would have, if I had a negative thought or I had felt myself, my mindset creeping in the wrong direction, from an equine perspective, I could catch it quite quickly and I'd know what to do with it, and it just done. Um, as my coaching friend described to me the other day, well, you're just on a level playing field now, Amy. You're just like everyone else. I was like, thanks for that. I don't know how to take that. But what she meant was, is now because you have kind of like the human and emotional brain part of it, and there's lots of things that I'm like, oh God, this isn't going right. This never goes right. Da, 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 da. But I'm so much more aware of it because of the mindset training that I have, and because of the awareness around the mindset. I can catch myself, and what I actually do is ask myself quite a lot of questions. I think probably I'm mad, but I do a lot of self-reflecting, a lot of asking myself, okay, what's the flip side of this?
Yeah.
How does this look if it wasn't me? Or how does this look from the outside? Because actually, a lot of the time, it's not what we think because we're in the moment, we're doing it, we're going through it. So I do a lot of journaling. I was a big fan of a training journal on the equine side for before I had a baby anyway. Really because I felt that I feel the benefit of reflecting on my sessions and setting specific goals for my training sessions because everybody's busy, right? Everybody struggles to fit everything in, but you want to get the most out of your session. So setting yourself one or two, max three things to really focus on in a session makes your sessions much more productive. So I was already doing that anyway. Now it's really important because my sessions are shorter. Um, Not as regular and a bit sporadic at the moment. So I have to be really specific about what I'm going to work on. And then the self reflection afterwards, again, this can be anything from like 2 to 3 bullet points after, or I actually can, if I've got time, I will then sit down and write more and go into more depth about it. But and that is kind of from the written side of things. Even from my general life perspective, journaling has become a little bit more present now because I just have so many things to think about and so many things to do. I have a business to run, I have a baby to look after, I have horses to compete and look after. I also have a master's dissertation to complete this year, um, which was a really stupid idea to have a baby in the middle of all this, but here we are. So I have a lot of things. I'm juggling a lot of things. So for me, journaling has really helped. And just to be able to download things, I often feel like if I've got a lot going on in my head, just writing it down makes a really big difference. And in terms of time, sometimes I don't have time. I love a pen and paper. I love a pen and paper. That really works for me. Sometimes I don't have time for that now. So I really utilize when I'm having to feed the baby, I use the notes section on my phone
Yeah.
for lots of things, from planning social posts to writing to journaling to writing to-do lists, everything. So yeah, I do. Journaling has been huge. I also actually, going back to what you said earlier, use a lot of what went well today and what went well in this session. I challenge myself to look for that before I start looking at things I want to improve. I never ever look at the things what went bad today. I always look at, okay, what could I do better?
Yeah.
I just don't. There's no benefit for me to go, right, this didn't go very well today. There's much more benefit of I could do this better, and this is how I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
I'm like we've discussed before. I prefer to take action than I do to kind of sit with it. So if I'm doing something, I'm taking action, then I want to do something about it. So actively taking notes and journaling, or making a difference, changing something, reflecting on it allows me to take that action. So yeah, that's the kind of things I'm doing day to day.
Love that. And I love that you shared your reflection is, well, what went well and what can I do to improve on that next time? That's exactly what I do with like every program, every launch, pieces of content, events that I run. Because it's so easy, I think, for people to be almost, and again, this goes back to that failure mindset of like, it's either a success or a failure. It's either
Yeah.
good or bad. I'm like, no, let's remove that way that we like review things and reflect on things and say, well, what did go well? And what can I improve on
Yes.
next time? Again, it's just shifting that mindset around it. So I love that you brought that up. And journaling, I love journaling, but I've also got clients that just aren't that wordy. They just really struggle putting pen to paper. They really struggle writing out their thoughts. And it's so, so, so important that when you listen to these conversations, you don't then think, oh, I should be doing journaling, I should be
Yeah.
doing X, Y, and Z, and that you actually find your way. Because when you find your
Absolutely.
way, it's so much easier to like self-coach yourself. It's so much easier
Yeah.
to let go of what's holding you back and get yourself into that desired mindset. But again, it almost needs that little bit of trial and error to find your way. And I guess it's the same with the work that you do with your clients as well. I imagine, do some of them
Yes.
journal, some of them hate journaling?
Yeah, completely. Some of them will not put pen to paper, and that's fine. That's not how they process things. What has been really good is getting some of them to do voice notes after their sessions. And again, I know like you found that audio works really well with people, and I think at the moment the way the world is so accessible, I think sometimes voice notes is a really easy way of doing it. Some people hate that. Some people hate talking to that or listening back to themselves. I have one client who loves to talk to the phone, but it writes the notes for her. So at the end of her session, she'll say, "We worked on this, and this is how we did it." And and I actually had started doing with people and getting them to do their voice notes, but asking them really poignant questions. So helping them in their reflection on training as well. So for example, really useful one, like if you were going to school again tomorrow, what would be your two top tips to yourself? What is the feeling that you want to recreate tomorrow?
Perfect.
And another one that I love, and this is one actually I use just on a mindset talk in the camp, is what does that done? What does that look like done well? So if you're going to a show or set a goal for something, what does that look like done well? And just that kind of reflecting, like, okay, yeah, this is how I piece it together, gets people looking for what they want more so than what they don't want.
Yeah. What does that look like done well? That is such a good question.
Mm.
I love that.
I like that one.
So, so powerful. So obviously a lot of our listeners will be business owners. So I kind of want to talk a little bit about your business, and how that's grown, how that's shifted, and how that's evolved over the recent years, in alignment with firstly you actually then being able to set this business up to have your baby, your gorgeous little girl, but also then how you've shifted your business to be able to help your clients better. What's that kind
Mm.
of journey been like for you, that evolution?
I'm not going to lie, it's been hard. The equine industry is very traditional, um, and they don't like change. But I have loved it. I've loved it because for me, I think it's like I said, it goes back to that making it accessible to everybody, in whatever shape or form that looks like for people. And I am a big believer that we need to utilize our time on the horse. The time on the horse is really precious, but that doesn't mean we can't get better off the horse as well. And by spending time doing the mindset work, actively reflecting on things, feeding forward, strategically planning, all of that makes the time on the horse so much easier. And that purposeful practice, doing things with meaning, not just doing things to tick a box. And I think that matters as well. I mean, basically, traditionally, I started as everybody else does, and I was teaching loads of lessons, and I love doing that. I love giving people lessons. I love being there in person. But what I found very quickly was that my capacity, I was really struggling capacity wise. I just couldn't fit everybody in. And everyone's like, just put your prices up. And I did that. And it still didn't really make any difference. Um, so I then started to evolve the business. So I started doing some block bookings. And that was great, except for the fact I then didn't see some people for like 6 months because I was so chocker with block bookings that until those people had done their 6 lessons, I wasn't seeing they could, and then they finished their block booking and I'm like, I'm really sorry, I can't fit you into the next lot of block because I haven't finished. So for me, consistency is huge with everything you do.
Yeah.
And I couldn't give them that consistency. I could when they were on the block bookings, but I couldn't do it all the time. And what I did find that people found their conversations with me as beneficial as they did their riding with me, if that made sense. So when COVID came, obviously I couldn't go out and teach you in person anyway. So I had to adjust. I wanted to provide that consistency for people, but I couldn't teach them. So I had to find a way. So I set up what I called the Team Blank Club at that point, and just offered like free content every week, 3 times a week, all the way through COVID, basically. And then I really enjoyed doing that. And a lot of it was planning and mindset and, how to plan your season and get the most out of your sessions. And like, there were so many different things. And I loved it. And I was like, how can I do this so that it's available to people all the time? And as time went on, I basically continued to do that as like a low level membership. And yeah, people have stuck with it. What I did have to do to start off with is change my business model so that people, when we came out of COVID, they only wanted the lessons. They weren't interested in the club, but even though they had seen the benefit of it. So I had to take a bit of a leap of faith and go, I'm only teaching you if you're on a membership, which meant I had to provide. So I basically only charged them for the lessons and provided everything else just with it because I needed buy-in. I needed people to trust the process. And as time's gone on, momentum's really built with it. But those first, I'd say, probably 3 years since COVID were really an uphill battle because the online world for equestrian, it was only just starting to be a thing because of COVID. And it was hard. It was really, really hard. But I stuck with it because I believed in it. And I really believe for people to learn and feel the benefit, they need to be doing the stuff off horse as well as on horse. So as time's gone on, that's basically evolved. And I've had several versions of that membership and layers and things like that to suit. And what was really telling for me, so I have kept this membership all the way through. And so when I had Mary, I basically said to people, I'm going to keep the membership running. It will all be pre-scheduled. I'll use my kit days to come on once a month. And I had just over 20 people stay on that just because they wanted to stay on the online stuff, which was crazy, really. I honestly thought I might get like 5 people stay on, but because it's built a community where that consistency and those touch points and that availability to me really helped. And so over the last 2 years, I've taken my UKCC level 4 qualification, and as part of that we had to do a 360-degree review. And we did it at the beginning of the course and at the end of the course, and they got sent a questionnaire by the BEF, and they had to answer these questions about me, basically anonymously. And one of the things that came out was it was something along the lines of, what 5 words best describe your coach, or something like that. And it's so interesting, the change over the 2 years. And like none of the words were bad, thankfully. But the interesting in the change of words, and this is something I would say definitely over the last 2 years that I have done as a coach, but also in my business, is that authenticity and believing in what I'm doing. And it's really interesting. I would say when I started the course that I was there for everybody. I could help everybody. And there is like clear communication, really supportive, inspirational, motivational. And there's all of that at the end of the 2 years. But the words that I was really drawn to was accessible, professional. And it was just that little change. And I was like, that's really interesting because I actually see these people less in person now than I did 2 years ago. However, I am being seen as more accessible than I was 2 years ago. And I think that's really powerful because they have a lot of touch points with me. So they have 3 Zoom calls a month. They have a monthly check-in. They have video analysis. They also, and then they can have their lessons if they want to on top of all of that. But that basically gives them 5 touch points with me before they've even seen me in person. And
Yeah.
I think that makes a big difference. They also get an audio training and an exercise of the week every week. So again, that's another probably 3 6 touch points in a way through the month. So they don't feel like they haven't seen me, even if they're only seeing me once a month,
Yeah. I love
which has made a
that.
huge difference.
Yeah, I love that. And I love that you stuck with it because
It was
sticking with
hard.
something for 3 years when it feels like an uphill battle, when it feels like you're trying to force something, when it feels like part of you was probably like, is this even going to work? Like, can I convert these people that are very traditional, they're very stuck in their ways because that's just how the industry is. Can I convert them to doing it this way because you had that belief? So many people would not have been that consistent. Like,
No,
that's just a fact. It's a really sad fact, but it is a fact. Most people would not have been able to keep going for 3 years. So I fucking commend you for that.
it was really hard. I did a talk for some level 2 coaches last year on my business and how I had done it, and they were like, "Oh, but how do you get people to do the online side?" And I was like, "I basically made it so that they couldn't not."
Yeah.
And if they wanted to have lessons with me, that's what they had to do because that's the way I wanted to operate. And it goes back to that work-life balance. And even before I had Mary, I needed more of that because realistically, I had 3 horses to compete at the time. I wasn't getting the time to do that. I wasn't getting the time to train. And I love my coaching. I really do. But if it doesn't let me ride, there's no point in doing it.
Yeah.
So I had to have a real conversation with myself about that. Also, I had the husband that I wanted to spend time with, friends that I wanted to see, and I wasn't getting to do any of that. So even just the concept of moving my booking online made a big difference. And that was really the first step. And then doing the team trainings and things like that just added to it and really enriched the whole experience. And I think that now is kind of driving everything that I do. Even when I think about my camps and things like that, I want to give people like an immersive experience, not just, oh, I'm coming for a lesson.
Yeah. And actually, I love the ripple effect of that as well, in terms of actually you setting your business up in that way, you pivoting your offers, you looking at other ways that you can serve more people, creates more influence and impact. And the byproduct of that is more income, which is
Yeah,
amazing. But again, we've got to be willing to like look for those gaps and keep thinking about how we can constantly pivot and innovate and reevaluate things and actually elevate things to actually think about
yeah,
how we can always be thinking about creating more, yes, income, but also the impact. And I love
yeah,
that. There's such
yeah.
a powerful thing of like the byproduct of you shifting your business model.
Yeah, and I mean, I still. It's when I gave that talk last year, and they said, "Oh, well, is this kind of where you're at?" I said, "No, it's never a finished product. I don't think it ever will be." But I think that's true for every business.
Yeah.
Um, but I think it's my job to keep evolving it, and the more I learn, the more I know, and how I do things, I'm going to keep changing it to suit that, because I want to be able to offer the best service I possibly can as a coach, but also as a business, because that's what I'm about, and I think riders deserve that. Why not? Why don't they deserve that? So I think probably the day that I say it's a finished product is probably the day that I am finished, um, because you get stagnant if you stand still for too long. So it's a constant growing, evolving thing.
And I love that about business. I love that we get to keep innovating and pivoting and try new things and like zhuzhing things up a bit. Like I love that. And I think if you
Yeah,
ever fall out of love with that, then that's a sign that actually maybe that business journey isn't right for you anymore.
yeah, totally.
So we've obviously worked together over the years in various
Yeah.
different programs and Thrive membership and things. How do you think that investing in yourself has helped you grow your business?
Oh, massively. And I've really seen the difference when I've invested less. Like, so I've had years. So after COVID, I was like, right, I can invest. And I had I had actually a good couple of years after COVID where I was working with you and I was because I was working on my mindset, I was working on my strategy. I was able, my biggest limiting belief has always been, well, I can't sell. like I'm just rubbish at selling. Um, and then I had a couple of years where I didn't. I did less, and then the last couple of years I've done a lot more, and it just directly impacts how I'm approaching my business and the ideas that I'm having. And yeah, I know I said to you before, like I really enjoy the Telegram programs because I just listen to them all the time. I can do it when I'm driving, I can do it like on the way back into clinics, and it just sparks ideas and keeps me in the right place all the time. So for me, I directly notice the difference. Sorry about Mary. When I am not doing that. And it goes back to, I know you talk a lot about flooding your mind with that. And that is exactly what I'm doing like all of the time. There is rarely a day that goes by where I'm not listening to one of your audios or I'm not sort of looking at something that you've put out on the membership because I need that to just keep touching base. It's really, I think, probably my biggest realization in that time. And you, I can't remember the exact words that you said, so you'll probably say it better than me, but you always say, like, it's your job to sell, it's part of your job. And I hated it. I hate talking money, I hate selling, I hate doing all of that. But I knew that I did know before I started working with you that my sales at clinics were directly impacted by how much I posted on socials. So if I didn't post on socials very much, if I wasn't consistent, I didn't have very many people at clinics because they weren't seeing me all the time. If I stayed consistent, I was, but I didn't know how to sell. I didn't know how to like promote things. I didn't know how much I needed to be doing that. And that's been huge because like I say, I hated it. And now I quite enjoy doing it because like you say, it's part of your service. And the way that you go about it, the way that you teach it is about still delivering a service to people. So still delivering content, doing the storytelling. And actually that's how I coach. Through storytelling, so it's exactly the same. I just needed to see it through a different lens.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what I keep coming back to. So I always try and make sure that I'm always listening to something just to keep my brain engaged about it. Otherwise, you slip. And obviously, everybody's human. I can't say that I'm perfect because that doesn't exist, as we said earlier. But I think for me, investing in myself in my business, you get it back all the time.
100%.
That's the thing.
And I'm so like you, like I literally flood my mind every single day, even weekends. Like I'm always out on my walks listening to something, on the exercise bike listening to something, like in the car listening to something. Like it is non-stop the amount of stuff I put in my brain. But I get
Yeah,
so much like you, I get so many ideas when I'm just on a walk listening to something. I'm like, oh, there's a great idea. And
yeah,
literally the notes section in my phone, there's so many fucking notes. It's ridiculous. But then
literally.
content ideas, podcast ideas, program ideas, training ideas, audios I want to deliver. And I think it's so good that we're so mindful what we put into our mindset because what you put in has a direct correlation with the output. Like
Yeah,
literally input equals output. If you're putting more goodness in, you're going to get more goodness out. And I think that's so important
100%.
to remember.
100%. And I just found myself, it's so easy to get stuck. And like, I think even being like in the Thrive membership, it makes a difference because you're hearing off other people. And because there's such a range of businesses in there, it's so handy because for me, I'm already like not like other equestrian businesses. So I already do things slightly differently. So it is refreshing for me to hear off other businesses, even product based businesses, and hear how they're doing things because I'm like, oh, there's no reason I couldn't do something like that. And what does that look like in my world? And I find that really interesting and inspiring because it's like, okay, they're struggling with that. I am too. Or actually, they've come up with this idea. Oh, God, like actually, I could create something like that. So it's really handy because it just gets me thinking outside the box a little bit as well.
Yeah, I love that. And I love that about the spaces I'm in as well. It's like much like the Thrive membership, I'm in spaces where there's so many different industries in there. And it's so
Yeah,
interesting listening to how other people create things and the things that they do and what works for them, what doesn't. And I think, sometimes on this entrepreneurial journey, it's so important for us to just sometimes have that awareness or have that realization. And sometimes actually realize that we're not alone when we're feeling something. If you're
yeah,
going through a
100%.
time, realizing you're not alone just suddenly makes it be like, oh, it's not that big of a deal. It's not that bad because I'm
It's actually
not
okay.
alone in this.
Yeah, definitely. And I find the same with coaching. Like my coaching, I love going and watching other sports, learning from other sports because they just bring something different to the table. And I think it's the same for business as well, for
Yeah,
sure.
I love that. Yeah, much like you, all about getting yourself in those spaces, flooding your mind, doing the mindset work, and all the good things. What would be one final tip that you would give someone if they're listening to this and they're thinking about growing their business, they're thinking about pivoting? What would be something that you're like, right, this is the thing, do this? What would be your top tip?
Oh, good question. There's a lot. I think, to be honest, I think whatever you decide to do, however you decide to pivot your business, the only person it has to suit to start off with is you.
Yeah,
And I say this so when I have because I have had clients challenge me before, like even now coming back to work after my maternity leave, someone said to me because I said, look, my clinics for the moment can only be on Mondays because that's when Mary will be going to nursery, and I've had people go, oh, well, will you only be doing Mondays? And I'm like, yes,
yeah,
because the only person this has to work for is me right now, because I have to be able to deliver that time and time again. And you know, it's entire. I did say, yeah, it's not going to be a forever thing, but this is the same. I think when you're creating new offers and things like that, if you genuinely believe in it and it aligns with your values, then actually you have it in you to deliver that to people. All you've got to do is give them give them a reason as to why you believe in it so much, and why it matters, and you will get people, but you have to stick with it. You have to believe in yourself and what you're doing, but like I say, it's got to suit you first, because if it doesn't, then what are you doing it for?
yeah. I love that. So powerful, so profound. Amy, you've been amazing. Thank you so much for sharing so many incredible nuggets, so many good ideas, your approach, your view, your mindset, everything. It's been amazing. Where would you love to connect with people if they've got questions, if they want to see what you're about, if they want to come and follow you? Where would you love to connect with them?
Instagram or Facebook is usually where I hang out the most. They can just find me at Amy Blount Dressage. I do have a website as well, so there's information on there. But yeah, Instagram and Facebook are always the best places.
Amazing. Well, I will put the links to those in the show notes. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing your incredible knowledge today. It's been amazing, and keep doing all the incredible work that you're doing as well.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.